Welcome to the Puna Geothermal Venture community meeting. We're going to go over the agenda. First, we'll have an introduction by Mike Kellikini, and then we'll have the PGV facility update by Jordan Herr. We'll have a County of Hawaii update from Jennifer Myers, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. Meeting guidelines. We're going to do the project updates first, and a Q&A will follow. We ask that you please hold your questions until the end of the presentation. We have received questions in advance, and we will go over those during the Q&A portion of the meeting. The meeting is being recorded, and we will be posting it on the PGV website later so that people can view it who are unable to attend. Meeting code of conduct. Please give the presenters the courtesy to speak uninterrupted. There will be plenty of time at the end of the meeting to ask questions. During the Q&A, we will switch between questions asked live and questions that were presented in advance. Once everyone has had the opportunity to ask a question, additional questions may be entertained, but we ask you to have one question at a time. We'll give everyone a chance, and then we can follow up. Any behavior that threatens the safety of another person will not be tolerated. We ask that you be respectful, and disruptive behavior that disturbs the orderly conduct of the meeting will not be tolerated. Abusive language will not be tolerated. A failure to comply with the code of conduct may result in being removed from the meeting.
What about lies?
We thank everyone in advance for their cooperation and participation. Q&A will be addressed at the end of the presentation. You can always submit questions in advance through the website. And anytime if you have a question or concern, please call the PGV toll-free response line, 808-369-9094. Now I will turn it over to Mike Kellikini for opening remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. And thank you all for showing up to our quarterly meeting. We appreciate you guys taking the time of your schedules, and we're here to give you guys updates. And we're especially thankful also for the county to provide updates. And without further ado, we'll start off with our plant updates with our plant manager, Jordan Herr.
So for the plant, everything's going well. We have currently 7 topside units running, 2 bottom side units running. Currently net output is about 28, 29 megawatts. So we were able to increase production since the last meeting. We were able to get KS19 and KS21 in service. So KS19 is a production well, and KS21 is the injection well. So we were able to finally commission those wells and get them in service, and they have helped to increase our production and net output. Working with Helco, they always are in need of more power and more stability on the grid. So we were happy to be able to help them out and create more stability. In putting in the process of KS19 into service, I know maybe some have questions or concerns on that. We actually did a clean out on the well prior to putting it in service. What does a clean out mean? A clean out is what we want to do on a well, so that after you drill a well, or every time you dig a hole, right, and you want to flow it or you want to clean it out, right, you got to get small rocks, small sand, debris, drill cuttings and stuff like that out of a hole. And so what we do is we flow, and we flow to atmosphere so that we can collect and separate steam and brine, and we can collect all these particulates out of the well. How do we worry about H2S, right, as a concern? Well, H2S, we abate with caustic, so we bring in specialized contractors that their profession is abating H2S. And so how does the system work? Well, we flow from the production well to a separation system and then to a rock muffler system. The caustic is injected prior to going into the system, and it's abated, and we have a secondary abatement system that is in the muffler system that sprays to abate any other residual H2S. How do we monitor this, right, to make sure that we are not having H2S go to atmosphere? Well, we have monitors right on the discharge of the muffler, and that's the closest point of the discharge. It's actually on the muffler itself, on the discharge. We have monitors all around on the outside of the existing muffler system at ground level. We also have our monitoring systems around the plant. And we also physically are out in the field in between, on the discharge or downstream of the plume of steam, and that's where we monitor also. So we have actually personnel stationed in these areas, which I personally was involved in downstream sampling. So what did we have going to atmosphere? We had abated steam going to atmosphere is what we have. We can do this for 4 hours per permit, and that's what we did. We have to abide by all DOH, DLNR, EPA, Clean Air Branch standards, and we have to get their approval and notify. We also notify by email and also in the newspaper to all the existing residents, and also on the whole island is per the newspaper notification. We also get in contact with civil defense. We had a whole update meeting with civil defense, fire, police. The mayor was there too, and updating them on what we're going to do, when we're going to do it. We did have a little bit of delay, so we updated them that we're going to have a delay, and we updated them when we're going to do it 24 hours minimal before we actually did the test. So it was a really good test.
You notified residents by email?
I just said, no, we mailed it.
You
We
mailed?
physically mailed it out, yeah.
But then you changed the date, and so you remailed them?
No, we said we were going to do it at this time or after. Yeah.
I didn't get a letter.
Well, you can sign up. You can sign up if you
Send
want
you a
to.
letter.
So, and then.
Right now, we're talking about, I'm giving my statement. You can ask questions, save it for after, no problem. We can get to those.
Okay.
And I know you already asked questions that we have already or to answer too, so we got to get to those. We want to be fair to everybody to ask questions.
Thank you.
But anyway, just to update, right, so this is how it went. 21 is the injection well right now, and we're flowing down the well. It's doing really good as injection, and we were able to bring up our production, like I said. Other than that, that's about it for the plant side. And we can go to the next.
How's everybody doing? Have some fantastic news. Does anyone remember me talking about the voluntary housing buyout program? Does anyone remember where we were at last time we
Wait,
talked?
What did you say? Can you repeat that? The what?
The voluntary housing buyout program?
What does that have to do with PGB?
Yeah, I'm confused.
So I'm giving county updates.
Oh, you're from the county?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Jennifer Myers.
Jennifer Myers. Are you from this district?
I'm sorry?
Are you from Puna district?
When you say from, what do you mean?
I mean, do you represent?
I work for the county.
Okay, so I'm sorry, the actual representative for this area is not here or?
She's right here.
Oh, good, okay, thank you. All right.
I've been here, thank you.
So Jennifer is with R&D, and she's in the team that's doing recovery post-eruption, and so that's why she's talking
Okay.
about the
Okay.
buyout program.
Okay,
I'll be incredibly quick. We've done more than 250 folks at this point for the buyout program, which is 100 more than last time, which we're extraordinarily happy about. That is $50 million worth of money that's going to families and residents that were impacted by the 2018 eruption, which I think is all something that we can be extraordinarily proud of. That's $50 million that goes into the pockets of folks. That's about an average of $194,000 per person, per applicant, and that money goes towards getting back on their feet. So I know that doesn't have anything to do with PGV, but that's something that we're proud of, and that's our latest update. So anybody who goes to our Revitalize Puna events? Okay, great. Glad to see some familiar faces. Our next one comes up July 8th. We're extremely excited about that one, just like all of our other events if you haven't been there. They're fantastic events where we have folks like the mayor, we have representatives from the planning department, folks from all over the county and state representatives that are there to literally connect with you, and Ashley, which is fabulous. There to literally sit down and connect with you on your concerns. So if you guys are at this event because you want to connect with PGV and the county, come to our event and we'll connect with you on your concerns about not just PGV but other things as well. And we will absolutely get to those questions after. Also wanted to update folks on what's going on with the road and water line to Koipi. I know a lot of folks are waiting on the environmental assessment to that. We were hoping to have it earlier this year, unfortunately just because we've got some delays that are happening with FEMA, which are frustrating but are outside of our control. They still have the EA in their possession, the environmental assessment in their possession. It's going to take them just a little bit longer to get it to us, but when it does get to us, this entire time that we've been waiting for them to pass the baton to us, we've been really working diligently to make sure that when it is our turn, we're ready to really start rocking and rolling on getting everything planning-wise done. And I promise, again, we'll get to those questions and answers when it's time for that. So that'll be happening here soon. We're thinking maybe May is when we'll be seeing it from FEMA, but again, we're still waiting on them. When that happens, that'll start a 30-day comment period. And in that comment period, we're also going to be taking the time, this isn't a requirement, but it's something we want to do. We're going to be having a public meeting, likely virtual, that will take place, and that's going to be the opportunity for folks who have questions, comments, concerns, or just want to kind of get a breakdown of what's going to happen. We're going to make sure to connect with you folks during that meeting. Now, we don't have it scheduled quite yet because we really can't schedule it until the 30-day comment period starts. So if you guys can make sure if that's something that you want to be a part of, follow our social media. It's Kilauea Recovery. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have TikTok, we have YouTube channels. We just did a video with our planning director, Zendo Kern, for an update on that EA with the latest information. And we just published a brand new timeline for the EA and how it impacts the rest of the process, including construction, which we're expecting to happen Q1 of next year. Aside from that, that's pretty much where we're at here with the county, and when it's time for Q&A, I'd be more than happy to connect with you guys and answer your questions. Thank you.
So we will move on to the Q&A session. Please be polite. No vulgar language or name calling, or you will be asked to leave. No yelling, or you will be asked to leave. 2 minutes max for any question or statement. We want to make sure to give everybody the opportunity to ask their questions. In order to give everyone the opportunity to be heard, we will take 1 question per person until everyone has asked their question. Then we will take additional questions. Questions submitted before the meeting will be read aloud at this time. So I'll turn it over to Mike.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go in order. Is Rocky Kalani here? Rocky?
No, he and his wife had to go over to coincide because the gas from PG&E was too much for them on their homes.
Okay,
Which is bullshit.
Huh? It's not your experience, it's theirs.
I said thank you. So this is from Corey.
So
And
you don't read Rocky's question then?
I'm going to email it to him.
No, we want to
We want to
hear it.
know.
We want to know what it
Yeah,
says.
yeah, this is a community meeting, that's why we
Right.
want to know all the
Rocky sent
questions.
4
all the
questions.
answers.
Yeah, and can you repeat the questions?
I'll read out the questions.
Thank you.
And by the way, Rocky sent his in ahead of you, Corey, so I'll read Rocky's. So Rocky's question is, why is ORMAT allowed to still operate without a current environmental impact statement? All right, and the answer is, PGV is not required to have any environmental impact statement for the 38 megawatt contract that we're at. Good question, Rocky. Next question.
Why is that? That's against the law.
No, it's less than 39
No, it's-
megawatts.
There's no law
I don't
in
care what
Hawaii that it's
megawatts.
less than
You guys want to hear Rocky's questions, or you guys want to talk?
Federal.
Let's keep it in order.
Yeah, let's keep it in order.
We're gonna
It's
talk
going to
about
be
these.
recorded.
We're
Yeah.
gonna talk about these questions and answers which you guys requested. Let us answer it. If you guys have a question, we'll ask you. But let's keep it orderly, or else we're gonna just have bantering back and forth, and that's not what we're here for.
So the next question, why is the community not notified when PGV releases toxic geothermal gas? PGV is required to notify Civil Defense, Department of Health, County Planning Department, DLNR, if there's any H2S release from the facility. And depending on the situation, the agencies who are involved, such as Civil Defense or Department of Health, will then reach out.
How long does the H2S take to kill you? Is that gonna be enough time for
We
you to tell
gotta
civil
answer
defense
these
and then
questions here.
they're
You
gonna
stop
tell
interrupting,
the
I'm gonna have to ask you to
civil
leave.
Sarah, let me finish Rocky's
You
question.
interrupt again, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. We're trying to get
No,
through
yeah,
this.
you'd like me to leave, I'm sure.
You guys
Please
want to
let
listen
him
to
finish.
Rocky's questions? Please, let me read them. Okay, last meeting, PGV stated they use a closed loop system. Then PGV employees stated some wells are losing compression, which indicates the well is not a closed loop system. Well, PGV is a closed loop system, and I don't understand what Rocky is referring to as compression. Rocky's next question. Why are you allowed to gas Puna and not even have working monitors? The State Department of Health, Clean Air Branch, they oversee air quality for the PGV facility. There are monitoring stations set throughout the perimeter, and it's a requirement by our permits. If we don't have that, we're in non-compliance, we can be fined, we can even be shut down.
Is that an hourly average?
Yep, there's hourly averages. By the way, if you want to look at what the readings are, you can go online, right? Puna Geothermal Project.com. You can even look at the historical data. There's tabs in there that you can go back. Go to the different stations. We can even look at the locations, which way the wind direction is, because it's obvious if you're upwind and you're experiencing something, then most likely it's not from PGV.
Right, so why would you put the monitors up when then?
Because I just explained
But the
the
DOH
Department of
told you
Health have to comply with air quality.
Hey, let's finish these questions.
Okay, the next one. Why is PGV stinking Puna with toxic hydrogen sulfide and no warnings are given? Since startup, PGV has not released any H2S with the exception of the abated flow cleanout. And there's several fissures that are right next to us that are emitting gases on a 24-hour
Connect
basis.
directly to your plant, because you blew them up during the eruption.
Ma'am, you interrupt one more time. I'm gonna ask you to leave, please.
Yeah,
I already got things there.
Yeah.
Well,
We're
listen,
answering
let's be
questions.
fair
Let us
to-
get
But
through
then
this,
I got a
and then you
question on the
can
question,
save your
and you
questions,
don't
and we're gonna answer them. Let us get, we're never gonna get through these if you keep
It's not a
interrupting.
conversation.
Okay,
It's not, really.
there's also a question from Rocky. No evacuation warnings like you did a week ago. I don't know what he's referring to. But I can tell you that there are emergency response plans, there are emergency plans within the county. PGV has emergency response plans and we comply with them. And review, we go over them, we update on a regular basis and make sure that all the appropriate agencies, CD, police, fire, have copies of these. Okay, Rocky, two more. Again, Rocky is talking about monitors. Why can ORMAT still operate without functioning monitors that are supposed to protect the residents? This is similar to the previous question, right? Department of Health monitors and is responsible for the regulatory oversight of air quality for the PGV facility. So we gotta have that, it's always there. If not, we're in non-compliance, subject to being shut down. And again, Rocky's asking about when will the environmental impact statement be completed. The EIS, which we are doing because we had a scoping meeting last year in August, is still being performed, and it should be posted to the environmental bulletin on May 8th. Thank you, Rocky. So this, questions from Corey. Thank you, Corey. So Corey is asking, are drilling costs only for restoring capacity lost from the eruption? And she has a comment that PGV has increased what it charges to guarantee certain capacity to generate power in the latest amended and restated power purchase agreement with Elko. So what, and correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but what what Corey is referring to is that PGB recently submitted amendment to the PPA that the PUC is reviewing, and we are requesting a price increase. Is that what you're referring to? Okay, good answer. Anyhow, the drilling costs that we're incurring today is to get us back to 38 megawatts. So that's what we're doing. Now, going forward in the future, if new wells are needed for a repowered facility, then the drilling cost will be applied to that project. So our cost in the contract remains fixed, regardless of what we have to pay in the future. So the calculations for our cost, what Halco pays us, is not going to change for 30 years. It's going to be the lowest cost energy that's available on the grid.
You're going to be charging Helco more for tax.
No. So in 2009, okay, you're right. In 2019, the PPA was approved. And then in 2023, we put in an amendment because we asked for more increase in cost coverage. And this is due to what happened with supply chains, COVID, just like how everything else around us has increased. Right? Fossil fuels, oil has gone up, all of that. So we don't have any hidden costs in the power purchase agreement. And that's your next question. Okay, so Kari's asking, what percentage of the time will non-PGV renewables be curtailed under the new PPA? That's something that we'd have to go through Hawaiian Electric Helco folks. They are the ones that schedule curtailments for all the different facilities. I can help you, and I can reach out to them for you. Okay. So Corey is asking, how much isopentane is lost by PGV? And what are the greenhouse gas emissions impacts, including refining and transporting isopentane to oil? So at PGV, we use normal pentane, which is similar to isopentane. It's just the difference is maybe in the temperature that it boils at. The losses that we experience is primarily from maintenance activities. Like if we change out a turbine, we change out a pump, we have to break the connections, and so we lose a little bit amount, maybe gallons. So it's very minimal.
How many gallons per month?
I think the permit, what is the maximum per day? Around 300 pounds. So 300 pounds is like 50 gallons per day is the allowance, and we're well below that.
You do that every day?
By the permit.
Theoretically?
Yeah, but we don't want to do that every day because it costs us. So it's in our best interest to make sure there's no leaks. So we do sniffs, and we go around, make sure that the gaskets and the seals aren't leaking. It's an industry number that the Department of Health uses, but we always strive to go way below.
Anything on the greenhouse gas impacts of transporting the container?
Yeah, so we did a greenhouse gas analysis for the existing 38 megawatts and because of the transmission rebuild. And it was, we were displacing in the order of 3 metric tons per megawatt hour, right? Something along that order. But I'll have to send you the exact numbers just to make sure that you can note that for now. If anyone else is interested in that, I'd be happy to share it. But greenhouse gas is definitely something of concern. And because we're avoiding the use of fossil fuel for the generation of power, it offsets it in a big way compared to what it costs to burn the fuel to bring the normal pentane here.
Also, to bring that and also to do the drilling.
Isn't pentane made out of oil, petroleum?
Yep. It's not made out of oil, it's a byproduct. Okay. So almost to the end of Corey's questions. So Corey references the ownership of PGV. Ormat is a 63% owner, and there's another investor jointly that owns the other 37%. And the question is, if there's a lawsuit over PGV, who will be liable? And the question is, PGV and the parent company will be liable. Okay, almost there. Corey is asking, how much are PGV's insurance costs now compared to before the eruption? Well, definitely it's much higher now.
How much higher per year?
Oh, probably 20%. It varies a little bit. So as time goes on, maybe we'll get a small breaks. Last question for Corey. Who is monitoring the tree growth around PGV's transmission lines and keeping them trimmed to a safe height? So Halco, Hawaiian Electric are the ones, the primary folks that are watching it. If we see big trees at our location, we knock them down. We've done that
But
already.
you're talking the main ones all the way
Yeah.
to the substation?
And out on the road,
That's all helpful.
yeah. And Jordan talks to them on a regular basis because we gotta help pay for that. So,
You pay all of it.
we gotta help pay for it. But Halco, they fly, from time to time, they fly their helicopters. So they look for, like, you know, spots where they need maintenance. And in addition, they look at the tree growth. Okay. Online from Larry. Thank you, Larry. Larry Wood. So Larry Wood was referencing earthquakes in the vicinity of the plant around the time of the eruption and around the time when we were pumping water into the wells to cool them off and depressurize. And Larry's first question: did you feel a sharp increase in earthquakes around the evening of May 9th, 2018, while you were frantically scrambling around to show Governor Ige? Can we show this?
Yeah, should I hold it in front of the camera?
Oh, right there. So the question is, the basic question is, did we feel a sharp increase of earthquakes? And this is on May 9th. Well, we were feeling quite a bit of increase in earthquakes from April. So
So the day Civil Defense contacted us, that was actually the most frequent. It was like every 10 or 15 minutes
That was-
before the eruption.
that was before, so that was like May
That
1st
was the
or
most
2nd.
intense.
Yeah, so there definitely was increased earthquakes. We did feel it.
I'm talking about on May 9th.
May 9th, there was nothing
You
that
could
was
feel-
worse than the first couple of days.
So Larry then asks, do you think that pumping cement would have stabilized the situation rather than pumping water? And I have to tell you, Larry, so in the geothermal industry, and for everyone else to understand, in the geothermal industry worldwide, pumping water into geothermal wells is a standard practice to perform maintenance, whether it's planned or whether it's an emergency. And in this case, it was an emergency, so we pumped water to cool off the well and remove the pressure, because we won't be able to pump cement if the well is pressurized. So that's why we pump water into the well to cool it off and depressurize it. It's done this is done worldwide, not just PGV.
Well, yeah, and it's not done during an eruption though. It's never been done before. an eruption.
It's correct. You know, we experienced something that probably no other plant experienced. But in Kenya and Africa,
Iceland, I think.
and Iceland had one, but whether it's routine maintenance to change a valve on the well, or whether you want to depressurize because a lava flow is coming your way, you use the same procedure.
Can I hold this up and speak for a second?
Hold on.
Let me
afterwards.
finish your question. So how is pumping water still part of emergency response plan? I think I just kind of, I went over that, right? It's regular routine or emergency situations. Pumping water into geothermal wells is standard practice. Okay, now I can move on to Sarah Steiner's.
Well, Larry wants to look at
Q&A,
the
let's get
earthquakes.
past these first.
Yeah,
Yeah,
We got time. We'll get past these first and then we can
okay,
get.
we'll come back.
you're gonna come back. All right, everybody heard that?
That would be good with this,
Okay, Sarah. So Sarah's asking us, did we submit a correction to the October air pollution permit, which is also known
Or
as,
modification.
or modification, which is also known as the clean air branch, the non-covered source permit.
Yes.
So we're in discussion with DOH
Mhm.
to make a correction, and we'll more than likely end up
Mhm.
having to modify it.
Yeah.
So one thing we need to make clear is that the permit is supposed to state 14 active geothermal wells. That's what we're trying to correct, okay?
You know, I think you were allowed 14 wells way back when you started, and then you were supposed to update your permit with when you updated, got, permission to do more wells and
So-
your increased power.
So this is what we're doing. With the county, we can drill 28 wells, okay, 30 wells with the county.
All with no environmental impact
Let
statement.
me
Unbelievable.
finish.
Yes.
With the county, we can drill up to 30 wells and go to 60 megawatts, but we're not doing that. With DLNR, we can drill 28 wells and go up to 60 megawatts. With the county, because we're not at 60 megawatts, we're using 14 wells, okay? So there's a misunderstanding because we're at 22 or 21, which the well designation is already above 14, and that's what we need to correct.
Right, and you knew about that already in 2015 because you had already was drilling past 14 and you never updated your
But we
permit.
never had 14.
For 8 years, we've tried to have a contested case.
I
You
know.
never updated your permits.
But Sarah,
You
even-
drilled wells without
listen.
updating them.
even today, we don't have 14 active wells.
That doesn't matter.
It does matter, that's what we're trying to
You
correct.
only had permission for 14 wells.
So you're gonna see it come out when DOH gets it?
Yeah, we're gonna have a contested case this time too. You guys aren't gonna just hire your lawyers and suppress us.
Okay. Let's go on to the next one. Number 2. At the October 2022 meeting, PGB stated that HBO had asked for data for the seismic array that PGB controlled from 2010 to 2018.
And then the new ones,
And then the new ones that has been in only several months now, right? And, yeah, okay.
Can we pass one around?
Somebody can pass one.
Go ahead, Hannah. Okay, the seismic data, Sarah,
Yes,
the seismic data that we are collecting today
yes.
is business confidential data, okay? So,
How you fracture and we don't get to see it.
listen, it's just monitoring of seismic activity.
Yes, that's.
Okay,
fine.
all right, let me finish answering. We do not plan to share seismic data with the public. However, if USGS thinks that it can be of usefulness to them and monitoring what's going on, PGB would be happy to consider sharing the information with USGS.
Well, like you told me 6 months ago when I asked if you weren't sharing it with them. So now you're willing to share it, but not with the public.
Yes. Now,
There's no, what's
we're willing,
proprietary? There's no other geothermal plant in Hawaii. You don't have to hide your information.
we're
from
willing
your
to
competitors.
consider sharing it with USGS.
Well, I think you need to show it to do an EIS, because that's how you prove you're not cumulatively fracturing the rip zone.
Hey, let's get through these questions so we can get to
My
it.
questions, we're getting through them.
Yeah, we are. Listen, you're gonna have a chance to comment on the EIS.
I will.
Okay. The community around PGB has been reporting rotten egg and ammonia smells. Have any of the numerous hydrogen sulfide monitors located on the PGB equipment have any positive readings last week or in the last several weeks or months since reopening?
So absolutely, you've been getting smell last week, last weekend, because of these fissures right here. We're getting it too. We've been having south winds and all that fissures. Definitely you smell SO2, possibly H2S that's coming from them. I mean, it's constantly venting 24/7. You can see the yellowing of all the type of sulfurs.
And you guys are
around it.
right next to that thing. It's right on your property line, and
We're
it's
also getting
affected
it
by
too
your
when it goes
injection.
south winds. Now, we're talking with CD, we're talking with the county so that we can potentially try to get some monitoring
And USGS.
from those fissures and try to see, what's coming out of them. Right now, we haven't been able to because it's on private property. So we're trying to volunteer to actually work with the county so that we can get some monitoring on that. Because yes, it's definitely, you can smell it, absolutely, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
And then that's why the
County's
people,
preventing
let me
you from
finish, hold
monitoring?
on, the downstream people who are north winds,
For preventing us.
we went to those houses too to try to help them and take samples too because they were complaining about also that. So we were trying to help them out with readings and whatnot to see, you know, what kind of situation they would be in with the constant north winds to them.
The county is going to allow us to go on location. We just need to work out whatever details we need to with Douglas Lane and R&D. And like Jordan mentioned, others, let me finish.
Otherwise, we have to come back to these issues. Can I ask a question?
It's fine, we're almost done. We only got a couple more. Then we can get these out of the way.
How are we gonna be backtracking?
So from the plant, Sarah, we haven't had any H2S alarms because the plant hasn't released any H2S.
So that whole big gassing off on April 14th where we saw all the gas coming out and everybody smelled ammonia and rotten eggs was
Perfect steam. I was downwind of it and in the steam cloud myself.
You know, it was probably a dead pig, I'm sure, like you've
No,
seen
not a
before,
dead
Mike.
pig.
Okay, let's move on. So Sarah, also in the same line of question about the hydrogen sulfide monitors, I wanted to share, right? You probably know this, but we have the website where you can access.
But it's uphill and upwind, it's not gonna go that way.
It can still give you an idea of what's going on, where the wind is blowing, etc. Right? And then so that way, if you're downwind, yeah, maybe it is from the fishers or from us. Or if you're upwind, and you know, it's not us. Okay, the last one. The last one here.
Yeah, it was KS19, not 14.
Yeah, it's 19. You're right. So, and then Jordan mentioned, yeah, we sent out by mail. We also posted it in the newspaper. If anyone else who didn't receive one want to receive future notifications, just leave your
Because the
contact.
newspaper is like pay-per-view now, we don't get to like go online and see any notices. You know, if you don't buy the newspaper, you don't get to see anything.
You can get the free Tripping Herald online.
No, you're not.
No, it's not free, you have to pay.
You can read like 1 or 2 articles and then you have to pay.
But it doesn't even work for me anymore.
Because you've read your
Yeah.
first 1 or 2
No, but it's
probably.
per month, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
they'll reset it. Yeah.
Anyway, those are Sarah's last questions, and now we can go around.
Okay, so first question, raise your hand. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, you know, this is why I didn't understand why we couldn't go as we were going, because every single question that I
That's
asked.
fine, you can ask one now.
about it. Okay, first one then is, did you say that you aren't required for an environmental impact?
For the existing facility that has been in operation for 30 years, we do not need a new EIS. However, we have a proposal at the PUC to increase to 46 megawatts that does require an EIS, which we are performing.
Oh, thank you.
What's your name?
I'm Catherine.
Catherine, yeah.
Oh, I called enough a message
Yeah,
today.
thank
okay.
you for the return call this morning. So, you know, I can skip down to that, what we were just talking about. Is there any chance that what you are doing with the drilling is contributing to what's going into those fissures and the smell that's coming out? Because what I'm smelling lately is not
Where do you
just.
live?
I live
To the east.
south. I live down the bottom of Pahoa, 132, 6 mile marker. So we're getting the south winds, so we're getting it.
So it's headed
Yeah.
towards you, exactly
So,
what's coming
but
out.
my thought is that, what I'm smelling isn't just the regular sulfur that you smell out of the volcano on a few fissures here and there. It's got a real chemical element to it and very ammonia smelling.
It makes people sick.
And
Very
so,
sick.
so I'm
So
wondering whether or
SO2
not.
has that, I mean, it's a lower ppm than H2S, actually, it's more of an irritant. And so, I mean, that's why I left a message, I could have come down and try to take readings by your place, see what, see what they got going on and
It's
whatnot.
hard because it just comes and goes. It's
And that's the
usually-
thing, is the winds, even for us at our plant, I mean, you definitely, as soon as you drive up, you smell it from the fissures. I mean, I talked with Talmadge and whatnot, we had other monitoring going on, because, yeah, it's bad from the fissures. That's why we want to try to get access to it to get some readings to see what is coming out of them.
Well, it's not a property line there.
Let me finish answering Catherine's question about can drilling be affecting that. So it's very unlikely because when we're drilling, none of that stuff goes anywhere. I mean, we get our water returned, the cuttings are there, and we just put in the casing now. So what happens is when we drill and it cuts the rocks, we pump water down and it brings the rocks up. So nothing's going out until we get
It's
ready.
so porous, I mean, it's so porous.
It is, it's very porous.
So I feel like maybe it is
But we,
going into
what,
this.
okay.
And that's
The whole earth is
contributing to
connected.
that chemical smell.
What I can tell you about that, I live right where you live. I live right down in that same neighborhood, and I've walked every square inch of that. You can see where the sulfur is coming out of the ground, and it comes out more some days than other days. There's all kinds of noxious stuff coming out of there, maybe 20 or 30 metric tons at a time, right? Annually, right? Tremendous amounts of stuff, right? And there's a bunch of those vents all the way up to where Gene Thomas lives. So you're getting that now because it's south wind. We haven't had the south wind in a long time, but it's perfectly normal. Drive by, you can see it actually coming out of the ground.
Chemicals in the SO2 is not perfectly normal.
It's the same, well, it was coming out of the ground before geothermal was running.
But it didn't have all the 30 years of all the shit, the caustic
So let's go on to the next question. Next question.
If that was true,
It is true.
Hold on.
Medically diagnosed. It is true. You
Let's-
guys cannot act like this.
Next question, sorry, thank you for the comments.
We haven't finished with this.
Okay.
No, but we gotta take turns so that no,
Oh, wow.
The thing is that
We
you
said that in
don't
the
see
beginning,
that.
you weren't here.
You don't see that in Puna anymore, hardly ever. Hardly ever.
This
What
is
you're
every
showing
day.
us right here, you don't
This
see
is
that.
going on
This
this
morning.
Who
Exactly.
else were that's doing it like that? I don't see it on.
the Fisher 8,
Not monitoring you guys.
Oh,
Like,
Fisher 8 is hardly got any steam coming out of it.
I know, but-
Hardly any steam.
go ahead, ma'am, next
You just
question.
prove to us what's going on here.
You guys won't
This is the-
monitor.
this is-
You said you
Ma'am,
want to
nobody's
monitor,
talking to
but
you right
just
now.
ignore
We're
it.
getting a question
That's
over
sick
here.
balance.
You keep interrupting, I'm gonna ask you to leave.
I don't give
We're
a shit,
trying to,
bro.
well then you can leave then leave.
This is
Then
not
leave.
happening.
People wanna.
So that is the most recent flow, right? And so that's why it's the most active along the Fisher
You
line.
don't like my question, so that's the end of
Yeah, so then
that.
it's in.
Yeah.
What more did you need for your answer?
That's it.
What
Well, she
more
said
did
it's
you
not
need?
emitting up
And
further
then
up rift,
we
it's
go
really
on and
emitting
try to
mostly.
kick it
That's why I said it's
south.
Fisher 8 is uprift, right?
Fisher 8 is hardly getting any steam coming out of that.
Fisher
Not
8,
hardly any.
all of the other
It's
ones.
these that are going.
Walnut Street, Oakwood Street.
anybody remember Uncle Shack's?
People are
Anybody
popping
remember
up
Uncle
alive.
Shack's? He used to live right where
Yeah, no,
geothermal
it's
is,
true. Fucking
right?
right.
Why did Uncle Shack's move? Right? He used to live right there. The
public
volcano
stuff.
opened up and
Because
puked
I'm living in
everywhere,
real life,
right?
so no one could tell me it didn't fucking happen.
Yeah,
Since
so-
I was
Uncle
young.
Shack's used to live right there.
I'd like
Right.
to interrupt and.
All right, thanks. So you were
I have
raising.
one respectful question after.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
I'm a former Wheeler County, and I'm very concerned about the people.
Thank you, thank you.
And so the issue
Please
is,
let her talk, stop
I don't
interrupting.
know.
okay, the issue is
Quiet.
Public Utilities Commission. We, the public, own the Public Utilities Commission because since Territory Days, we've been making payments to the sinking fund. And so basically, Helco and all this, they're not even basically an exclusive franchise according to the laws. So basically, I feel like you shouldn't be having any, like, we're not gonna share this or share that. You're only here because of Public Utilities Commission and we, the public. So, I have a few questions, but I guess I wanna know, first of all, I was told that you have PGV reservoir. And don't take my picture, I don't know why you need to do that.
Wait,
You
it's
guys
being
already
video.
bothering me way
Yeah, they're
back.
on camera.
Because,
Yeah,
like,
that's fine, but I
intimidating
didn't-
her, though. Yeah, it's
Like, why you gotta take my picture?
Oh, let me delete it right now.
I change all the time, so it doesn't really matter what I look like, okay? So anyway, I was informed that you have bought, and are in possession, I don't know who you bought from or whatever, but it's called the PGV reservoir. What is that? Is that like back behind Pahoa dump where you were dumping ponds of toxic waste? Or you're taking the potable water from there, which is protected by the EPA? What is it? PGV reservoir, what is that?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow.
It's online. I can.
Oh,
Just because you read it online doesn't mean it's true.
Well, listen, here, the closest thing that comes to what you're referencing is called a mining lease.
One more outburst from you.
A what
You need to
lease?
leave.
A mining lease. Mining.
So have you gone under the official federal permits and everything to do mining in Hawaii?
No, we go through the state, because the state owns the mineral rights to the resource.
Okay, so that, in my research, Porter County, the Hawaiian Kingdom owns every square inch. You have the name of the kingdom, and so the state does not own anything.
All right,
So just
Thank
need to
you.
understand that.
yep, appreciate it.
Next
Who
question,
collects
who's got
the
a
royalties
question?
on those mineral rights?
What's that?
Who collects the royalties on those?
State.
No, where do they go?
It goes to DLNR, and half of it goes to the county, and 20% to OHA. 30% to the county, 20% to OHA, and 50% to the state.
I get one question.
Go ahead, sir.
I born and raised here. This is my home. I am the last of the Hawaiians live here. Everybody moving to your, what do you call that? Caucasian land in the mainland. I'm the last Hawaiian. My name is Makua Kuhivinui Solomon. They call me Solomon Makua Wailoi. My grandfather was blind from Pearl Harbor War. But I'll make story short to all of you. You still walking, you still can see, you still can hear, you guys can eat. But remember one important thing. The land is only temporary. It comes from underneath the ground where you guys are stepping on. Grandma Pele is alive. She'll come and eat your land in your house again and again. The way she took my family land in Kalapana from Queens Back, Kapa'ahu, Raw Gardens. They were supposed to have geothermal on land. They didn't think it because Pele eat the land. Remember one important thing. All of us here, be nice to the Aina. If they're making what they're making, you guys gotta observe what they're doing. Not what you guys saying and what you guys grumbling about. Don't grumble. Leave the earth, leave the land. You guys all came from America. I didn't go to America now. I went to serve my time like my grandfather. I put in my 8 years in the service. I'm done. But one important thing about me, I don't care who's here, who's whatever grumbling, we don't own the land. Our Father in heaven, Jesus Christ, owns the land. All of you over here, not the namu, not the hakaka, not the complaining. You guys don't like the geothermal. I like the geothermal. I just been putting my name work for my nephew, Kaliko Lee. So, see you guys later. Thank you. Give a nice name.
That was a push for
Yeah, that was right. Because he's not sick. So
Oh, it kind of balances out
I do
everything.
have a nice.
Oh,
Sure, go ahead.
Is
Next
that-
question.
So you say you do want to come and monitor, yet after the last community meeting when you guys made a lot, like we all walked out because we made the one guy leave. You stated you were losing pressure, your wells were losing pressure, you don't know where. About a week later, we had freaking gray haze, insane, for almost a week. My daughter couldn't stand, she was dizzy, we kept going, she was H2S poison, diagnosed. You guys, civil defense, I'm sorry I'm pointing, I mean PGV, civil defense, Hawaii EMA, ignored it for 7 days straight as I emailed every day, sending the doctors and this, everything. After 7 days, guess what they say? Oh, we'll tell PGV. They fucking know PGV won't do nothing to help us.
Where do you live?
We live on Pahoa Road. And every morning, all the fissures from Leilani Estates settles, and my daughter is throwing up sick, her
She's
nose
supposed to be
burning,
Roger and,
everything. Okay,
Roger
you guys
does
are
it.
ignoring it. So
So-
please come and monitor if you do want to and not ignore it when the families report it to you. Yeah?
No, so when we get calls, if you would have stayed,
If
we
I
made
was,
contacts, and the last
meeting.
what do you
meeting,
mean?
we got
last
names and
meeting.
numbers,
You guys know me.
and we set up,
No, I'm contact.
we set up visits to people's houses who wanted to have us monitor.
You guys know I want you to
And we
monitor.
did.
Mike knows I want to monitor, and he knows how to get a hold
Well,
of me.
leave us your
You
name
guys
and
know.
number,
Sure.
and if you'd like us to come down and visit and
He
try to
said
check
he
it
got
out.
it.
So, example, even going to the plant, by Lava Tree State Park, in the morning, depending on temperatures, I don't know if it's winds or what, there's like a hot pass over there, that when you drive through, your windows get foggy, your
Yeah.
mirrors get foggy,
Yeah.
totally upwind of us, I mean, and
That's
no,
upwind from
no
us,
connection
too.
to us, but there is things that are still venting all over the place. There
This
is
is from
things that,
belongings to chemicals, is the
there is things that, I mean, the whole volcano erupted and broke out of
It's
the
like not
ground
the
and created a
volcano,
lot of
like people
damage.
say it's volcano, it's so laughable. It's not, we love
Well,
Pele.
you don't wanna hear what I have to say.
We
You
love
keep
her,
interrupting
she
me.
was trying to get
So,
to you guys.
Next question.
So let me,
Thank you.
I have a quick question to ask you though. I know you were looking to get the monitors.
My
from-
daughter's there.
You were looking to go get the monitors from CD or,
Yeah.
did you get it?
It was completely tampered with. It had dates for years ago. They told me I couldn't, set the date. How am I supposed to even monitor anything when they have it set, so it's not the right date, they're not the right time? Of course, that's not gonna be just.
Did it work when you had it, Paul?
Yeah, I
So
told
you
Paul
got it
about
from Paul?
what happened with me with it.
Did you
Yes,
try to help
and
her?
we give it back. I give it back.
Actually, I gave it to her in a manual, basically, I used the manual,
Okay.
and you can reset the dates through.
Yeah, but you explained to me how they said, we cannot do that, only they can do that, they can recalibrate it, right?
Well, no,
Or
I'm talking
whatever.
about the calibration, we can't do calibration.
Okay. We can calibrate
Yeah,
it.
so I was told
You
that I
can-
can't mess with it,
You
and
can-
it's so expensive.
You can
I didn't
reset
want
the
to.
date, but to recalibrate
Yeah.
it, they have to
Did you
send.
give it
I'm
back
gonna
to Paul,
try
or
to send you a new one
Did
with
you-
the nonprofit for the people who are
Did you
actually
return
sick.
it?
Yeah,
Oh, you have it, Paul.
Yeah, I have it. and then-
Are you picking up any readings at your place?
Frankly, the wind has been blowing from
Oh,
the
yeah?
south, so I'm not gonna get any reading,
Okay.
right? When the wind's blowing from the south, I'm upwind from Fiji,
Yeah.
so,
You haven't been getting, yeah, but we've been online since November of 2020 and you haven't had that monitor that long.
yeah, and so, we sometimes smell sulfur, but we know what H2S is.
H2S or the sulfur.
And we haven't, frankly, since we moved back, we have not smelled it.
Okay.
But, yeah.
All right, appreciate that.
So when you're finished, I have a question.
Well, thank you, Jasmine.
So, Mike, you said that PGV hasn't released H2S, into the air, that it's always there. Is that what I heard?
So we haven't had any upset condition where we had a failure of equipment or a valve. The only time there was potential for H2S was when we did the clean-out. And like Jari was saying, we abated it with sodium hydroxide.
So when you say you haven't, you're not talking about before the lava flow?
No, I'm talking since we came back online.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Because of course, before the lava flow, you have a valve failure, for example.
We've had upset
When
situations.
those things happen,
Yeah.
and more than 70 in the last 30 years, right? And when that happens, that's not abated because it's coming out of the system.
Yeah.
Right? And in that case, it's not a closed loop system, right?
Well, it's closed until something fails, right?
Well, okay, so yeah, until something
But
fails.
70, I don't know if it's
Well, yeah.
an accurate number or
Well,
no.
No, actually, we got it for PGV.
But I'll elaborate, but go ahead, you finish what you want to say.
So, then there is the pen thing, which you have.
Okay, before you go Pentagon, can we
Right.
talk about H2S
Yeah,
then?
let's talk about it.
The 70 incidents that you refer to, right? And others call it emergencies and other descriptions. So gassing, toxic gassing, what have you, all of those beautiful explanations. What we are required to do as a power plant is we need to report to the local agencies, Civil Defense Planning, Department of Health, when we get to the level of 5 parts per billion. Once we get to 5 parts per billion, we, because of concerns and requests from community members that they never get notified until after the fact, because you can smell H2S at such a low level, we said, if we get to 5, we're going to report it. So of those 70 reports, the majority of them, probably 67 or so, were because of the 5 parts per billion alarms. There were 2 or 3 that we exceeded the permit limit of 25 parts per billion.
Is that
So-
at instant or hourly?
That's an hourly average.
Okay, well, Lyle Leonard said for the state of Hawaii, the Attorney General said that it's an instant reading for the Department of Health. We had a
Okay.
contested case, we had a hearing trying to have a contested case, and Lyle said
Right.
it wasn't rolling average, it was an instant average.
Okay, there's 2 actually. And Lyle is an attorney for the Department of Health, just for those of you that don't know. The rolling average is 10 parts per billion above ambient. The hourly average, we cannot exceed 25, and that's a violation of the permit. Not talking about, OSHA levels and that sort of thing, just the permit.
But
That
so
was H2S.
OSHA levels is 10,000 parts per billion for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week per OSHA. And so yet we measure at 5, and then we also measure at 25, and then we have.
Okay.
OSHA's a different animal, because that's a
But-
workplace.
Right.
We live in a plant.
That's-
But that's a
24 hours
safe,
a
but
day.
that's a safe working, average at point blank, is
Yeah.
10,000.
If you're working 8 hours, but if you live there all the time.
But when but that's
This is-
10,000, there's nothing that normally scales down to
Are we on video?
100,000th of a percent.
I thought we are, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But one thing
Yeah,
to-
we're allowed
hold
say
on,
For
one-
the 170 that signed the
One thing
contract,
to
that
clear up is that, so
petition.
example, the relativity of what we measure, a Heineken beer has like 12, 15 parts per billion. So, this is what the reality is, it also has
It's
H2S.
also over time, so for
Yeah.
example, Hurricane.
If you keep drinking Heineken,
When you blew that valve,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So that went over your 5 TVs, right?
Yes,
Yeah, and then you notified civil defense.
everyone that we need to, yeah.
Yeah, right? You notified everyone. And, I was living a mile and a half from Coyote.
Mhm.
And we didn't get a notice from civil defense.
Because-
Until
You said-
after, so the cell phones went down, and then we all got sick,
Okay,
and so did 100 other people, right? And it wasn't until 3 days later that we got the notice from civil defense
yeah.
that if you feel like you need to evacuate, you should.
Uh-huh.
And of course, nobody could evacuate because all the Alvesias were down.
Right, so, to add more context to that. So the plant tripped offline, right, because the hurricane knocked off the transmission line.
Because you guys didn't shut it down
Right.
before
So
the
we shut the
hurricane
plant
came.
down, and there was a valve that failed, and it was unabated, right? So we calculated, it was less than 100 pounds from that location. So it didn't trigger in our documents, ERPs, any reason to evacuate people because of H2S. Maybe there was other reasons to evacuate because of the storm and being trapped by the trees and the wind blowing. I don't know.
Why wouldn't they? With how toxic it is on your own
We
website,
didn't
it's
have
just
any-
how toxic
there
it
weren't
is.
any-
Why wouldn't
The
they?
problem was we couldn't leave because of the trees. The trees were not a problem on my farm,
Okay.
because I didn't have a piece
Yeah.
But
But we just wanted to share those numbers just as a comparison. We almost
So
done.
anyway, I just want to point out that when you have an upset condition,
Yeah.
it's not abated. And then even if if H2S is abated, there's still heavy metals like mercury, cadmium, that goes out into the air,
Okay.
right? So it's not a closed loop system, and abatement of H2S doesn't solve everything. I had cadmium in my water tank
Okay.
after hurricane is out. Okay, so
Okay.
that's one. So, and then
I'm listening.
2 is in 2015,
Yes.
USGS did their study.
The groundwater.
Right, and they tested the injectate before it went down. right?
Okay.
They found pentane.
Okay.
So how do you call that a closed loop system?
So if you
Pentane,
read the report
I did.
carefully,
I did.
they did not know where the pentane came from. It could have been naturally occurring.
Oh
No, no, Can we have a conversation?
Yes.
Because I have read that report carefully.
Right.
And they were talking about, in water samples, but I'm talking about the injectate.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
injectate had pentane in it somewhere else.
All right. So let's be clear then. I've been saying all along that this is a closed loop system.
But
But you're saying that we get the leaks here and there, which proves it's not.
it's not-
So let me rephrase. The power plant is designed to be a closed loop system.
Right, right, so my brother's bar was designed to be closed loop, and I wouldn't let him park in my driveway because there was
It
all
leaked
oil
oil.
there. Right,
Exactly.
right, exactly.
So what do you do, right?
I understand that, but there's a design problem if the pentane that's not supposed to come in contact with the geothermal fluid is going back into the ground.
Okay?
So there's a problem with the design, if that's what's happening. I don't even know how that could happen, maybe the valves are leaking.
Well,
They're
there,
running turbines for like
there's
lower heat,
ways-
and they're on the hottest geothermal.
we're gonna hire
that's on the
Jasmine to
world.
explain.
No, I want to hear what Mike
Yeah, so the heat exchangers, right? And you have geothermal fluids, heat on one side, you have the pentane on the other.
Right,
So it's a mechanical process designed to be closed loop,
right.
and sometimes you can have pitting or holes or what have you. So what do we do to monitor that? We take samples, and that's how we find it, in the reinjection flow or in the production flow. So there's a whole host of requirements that the Department of Health, EPA requires us to do.
So who do you report, like, when you
The state.
inject it and you test it? So you test it for pentane?
Yeah, we can, isopropyl, right, Ron?
Yes.
And even in the groundwater monitoring wells, we do that too. It's not hooked up to the power
So the
plant.
isopropyl, that's the anti-corrosive, right?
No, it's part of the pentane that this was the USGS study in 2015 identified.
Yeah.
So we agreed to test for that.
So the isopropanol is the same thing as pentane?
It's got similar characteristic.
What's isopropanol used for?
I don't know.
I thought that was the anti-corrosive.
Well, we have other, what is anti-corrosive? Yeah, there's a different name, but I
The
don't know.
main ingredient in that is the isopropanol.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah, I've been
See, you had-
and so you're putting, when you were doing 5 million gallons a day, you use about 155 gallons a barrel.
5 million gallons.
And that stuff is particularly toxic for aquatic animals.
Okay.
I mean,
So-
dumb soap too.
5 million gallons a day.
Dumb soap too.
That's
you
what
put
comes
it in,
up.
I mean, it's too high
That you put
concentration.
in.
I mean, there's a lot
No,
of things that-
5 million comes up, we use the heat, and 5 million goes back down.
After you put a bunch of stuff in.
After we've taken the heat to generate electricity and put some additives, yes.
And then it goes into a different part of the ground. It's not just
We're
like
gonna
one big pool of water that you guys
And it's
have.
not now, and all the lawn fishers, all those fishes in the lawn.
Anybody have another question? Raise your hand, please.
Yeah,
Why don't we just
we just started
put
thinking
a
of
solar
it.
farm?
When can we go to,
Go ahead, ma'am, behind you, raising your hand. Thank you very much.
Yes, I have a question. I was in disaster recovery for companies like Chevron, and I have a hard time believing we don't have a disaster recovery plan for the plant, including hurricanes and volcanoes.
We do.
So my question really is in the future, if you have a similar situation like you did in 2018,
Yes.
have you learned from the experience and will you have a different disaster recovery
Yes.
plan going forward?
So
What
we
is
do
that?
have an emergency action
Well,
plan.
And then I was gonna say, you can
The
go
community
online.
doesn't even know about it, your guys' community emergency response
You
plan.
guys
You
have
could
been-
go online.
Stop
They
asking
don't know
another
about
question.
it.
I'm
I've
not gonna tell
asked
you
them all in
again.
the
I'm not gonna
community,
tell
they
you
don't know
again.
about it.
Okay, who has visited our website? Jasmine, has anybody noticed there's a link to the emergency response
Yes,
plan?
it shows
That's what
the
I'm
roads
saying.
over
They
the law
don't
like
know
they
about it.
exist.
Community.
Oh, okay.
You guys show the roads like they
Yeah, they
exist.
show, yeah, exactly, like.
They don't
All right.
exist, and it shows them like you could just drive away, drive up Oiki Road.
I know, we're not
It's
saving
hilarious.
We'll have to update that.
Yes, you do that.
Yeah, one-
Did
one
we,
more
did
now.
we answer your question?
I
Sorry.
don't think you
We
did.
kept,
What would
we
you
kept
do
getting
in the future?
interrupted. It's hard to answer.
Yeah, so in the future, if you're faced with a similar situation like you did in 2018, have you
Lesson
changed
learned.
the plan to not pump water down into the well?
So no, water is not gonna change. That's the industry standard. We did learn from hurricane on whatnot and adjusted some of the wind speeds that would initiate certain steps in our protocol, which we did learn from, to initiate potentially a little bit earlier depending on the landfall hitting the land. But per protocol, water, like you said, is the most important thing to keep control and
This
cool
is
the
the
well.
result of pumping water.
Sir, don't interrupt. I'm tired of
37
interruptions. We're gonna have an
earthquakes.
orderly
You need
meeting,
to plan.
respect everybody, ask questions and answer it.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead,
You're absolutely right.
Sarah, go ahead with a question.
Okay, so we have a problem, when the lava hits the water up at the volcano, it explodes. We have explosive activity at our volcano 60% of the time. Right now, we're in an effusive, couple hundred years of effusive, which is a slow-moving lava that people think takes a long time to go anywhere. And so when the lava hits the water in the ocean, it explodes violently and it turns into chemical reaction. So why do you think when you guys are pumping water down 8,000 feet into where there's lava erupting a few hundred yards away from you, it's not going to explode?
Because we're not going into lava.
Stupid.
The lava was right, is underneath your plant. You guys hit it in 2005.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was a
See?
different
Yeah.
scenario, and we didn't pump water down it, we were drilling.
Right,
Pumped
we're
water
drilling
down
to hit it on
Anything-
purpose.
anything that you have a
Exploded
hot-
in
You guys were
2015.
drilling to hit it on.
Did that.
So,
Okay, you need to leave, sorry, it's enough, you need to
Sure,
leave.
I'll be right outside with the science, everybody.
That's fine.
I was
so
waiting on
just,
that.
just to add though, Sarah.
Thanks for letting me stay as long as you did though, Brada.
I was
See you
trying to
guys
be
next
patient.
fucking meeting.
Trying to be patient.
Yeah.
You test the limitations.
All good, so do you.
Good practice, good training.
Yeah, it is.
So, I wanna just kind of
Okay.
tag along. So, yeah, all the earthquakes, the cooling,
Yes.
and all of these concerns that there's explosions. We know, I mean, you know, we make emu, right? We get the water on the rock, you see it crackles.
Right,
But
so then
listen,
how can you do that?
It's not happening like that underground, and this is,
Yeah, it's like
You
a
gotta be
pyramid
fucking
shredder
kidding me.
cover.
That's what happens
It
at the
can't explode
caldera.
until it really
It hits
explodes.
the lava and it
I have
comes
this
out.
report that I'd be glad to
Yeah,
share.
they didn't
with
even
you.
talk about a geothermal plant pumping 6,000 gallons a day in there for 30 years,
Oh,
eroding
yeah,
the
they-
rip zone. They didn't even mention you.
Oh, yeah, they
They
mentioned
did.
us. They said
They
that,
didn't talk about injecting water during the eruption. They didn't talk about that, but Charlene Wardlow's report talked all about how well the water explodes when it hits the
So-
lava and water explodes at the caldera.
we're gonna, listen, it's industry standard to pump water.
Air. I don't think there's any air down there.
So I'm curious about the pentane gas, you guys use that like radiator
Go ahead.
fluid, right?
It's a motive fluid that has the ability to transfer heat
Right, so you're using it basically. as-
backwards in the cooling.
Yes, as a radiator, so how volatile is that gas?
It's like gas, it's like unleaded, it's like,
Okay, so
gas
it's
that you
about,
fill.
it's about as volatile as gasoline.
People use pentane
Yes,
as a fuel.
absolutely, right?
Chemical
So
parts, oxygen.
what I'm curious is, we all get propane, we all go to the propane station to get propane. The only propane facilities around here are OSHA or EPA regulated, none of them. They discharge that stuff. What's that in comparison with the pentane gas? How much is the comparison there? Also, my other question is, we're running on a generator that's from 1953 in Cal, right? It's burning bunker oil, right? So you guys have to sell your power at the price of crude. Is that still going on?
For a percentage,
Yeah, so finally you guys get paid for your power. But here we are. Per capita in the nation, we're the largest polluter. Not New York City, not Los Angeles, right? You guys are pretty good, clean power. What's the deal? Why aren't people protesting Halco, who's the largest polluter in the nation? And it's right down here in Cal, right? These lights, our power grid, the hospital, the police station, the stoplights, they all run on bunker fuel, right? Bunker oil. It's the cheapest crude you can get. We're burning it up. Nobody's complaining about that, or what we all release every single time we get propane,
People
right?
also aren't blaming them for being involved in a malicious conspiracy to make people sick.
Why
Are
not?
they?
Why not? They're releasing it into the atmosphere right here where we all live, right? Same thing,
No,
except in a
I'm
much more
agreeing with you.
extreme.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, no, so, first question is, what are we compared to propane? Propane, you're filling up tanks daily and having small releases daily, every day. I'm sure if you had some type of measurement, it probably would be way more than we do, for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
especially with all of the propane filling stations and whatnot. Every time you fill up gas and you take out your nozzle and you see fumes, right? That's also the same thing of releasing some type of petroleum or gas to atmosphere. Same, very similar. And so, you know, and then when the statement of, you know, why they're not focusing on Elko, well, for us, I mean, Elko is trying their best too, and the problem is right, I mean, and we talked about it last meeting actually, is that, right, we had a statement of maybe, hey, let's use less power on the island, right, to try to cut down on what we need. I agree, no, I mean, right, and we said that, but how will we ever do that, right? Do we ever say we want less, everybody's gonna not turn on their lights, right?
Okay, so globally, right, you have 70 locations across the globe, right? So you guys are an Israeli-owned company that has 70 locations across the globe. At your other locations, do you see the earthquakes prior to an eruption, same as this, or is everyone different?
Yeah, we're all different. The plants in the mainland, Nevada and California, you know, Africa is similar, Indonesia,
So
Philippines, Kenya.
You're gonna put a geothermal plant next to an active area, right? I mean, that's why we picked the East Rift zone. I mean, you want the activity.
It's for the heat sources.
And hence, there's been eruptions in Guatemala, I mean, all over the world, right? That have nothing to do with geothermal plants, but there's eruptions all over the world. Now, coincidentally, of course, not only our plants or other plants, they are in areas where there is activity.
Right in the middle of an active volcano? Isn't this the only one?
There's one, no, there's many around the world. Iceland has them, they have almost coming to their,
But
into
you are
their
from
field too.
Iceland, that's a whole different thing. But
What is the difference?
What's the difference?
It's volcanoes.
Like per number of people per square mile?
Still volcanoes.
Oh, well,
You got a
but my
school right
question
next
is,
to, in Iceland?
but my
We got
question
schools
is,
across the street in Reno.
my question is,
Yes, sorry.
you keep saying it's industry standard,
For pumping water.
right? But you also said every place is different.
Yep.
So how is it that you just go by industry standard if this place is different? What do you do different?
So the difference here is that our wells, and there are other places that are similar to us, our wells are considered artesian. Are you familiar with the term artesian?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of the wells we have in Nevada and California are pumped wells. So they find the hot water down underground. It's not artesian, so they need to pump it up.
Yeah.
Right? So because we're artesian and because there's always pressure on our wells, that's why we have to pump water to cool and reduce the pressure. Places like Indonesia, Iceland, Philippines, Africa, wherever there's artesian geothermal wells, they use the same specific procedure. Now in California, where we pump wells, we shut the pump down, but it's still warm and hot. So we pump water to cool the well so that we can work on it. So the general standard is to pump water. How much and for what specific reasons can vary.
Right.
So one thing here, and I didn't get to finish my statement because we're getting interrupted, but we had a good discussion last time, right? And then we talked about using less power. Well, that's not reality, right? I mean, maybe some of us would like to use less power, but the majority of people use more and more, right? And the island is growing and more people coming to the island, they love the island or whatnot, and it's growing. And hence, the demand is a lot bigger, right? So help us doing their best to control, because everybody wants the convenience of turning on their lights every day. They want to be watching TV when they want the AC on when they want, and whatever, right? So that demand is very high, and so it's their responsibility to meet that. Unfortunately, yeah, they're running some old equipment. I don't know what their circumstances and how they make the calls on what they run, but you know, for them to be under pressure, like we had rolling blackouts, they took a lot of heat for that. I mean, because we're down and don't have the extra capacity, that's what they're forced to do sometimes because there is so much demand. There is sunny days, a lot of solar that comes back to the grid, But you still have to have all that standby power when it gets dark, right? When it gets dark, in 6 o'clock when it's dark, everybody wants to come home, turn on their lights, electric stoves, electric gas heaters, whatever. Electric heaters, right? Everybody wants that convenience. So then the discussion is, okay, what is the best power solutions? Because we have to have it. Whether you want it or not, there has to be some type of way, because I don't think everybody here is off-grid 100%. I think majority use some type of helpful power, and hence we have to have that happen, right? Well, what is the best way? Like we were kind of brainstorming the last time. One is, of course, fossil fuels is one way, right? We got wind, which is variable and not consistent, and it's a hard time to control a grid because it's windy for 10 minutes, then it's dead for 10 minutes. Super windy for half an hour, then no wind for 2 hours, right? So it's very variable. Solar is only during the day and only sunny days. If it's raining, you can't count on that either. You got water, it's a very small percentage on the island. So at what point, how do you pick and choose what is the best power to use, right? Well, we are renewable energy and 24/7. So when you gotta pick and choose, and I know it's a hard decision, some of you may not say, I don't want them all, but the reality is but you wanna go home and turn on the light. So what is the best way and the best solution? Next question, go ahead, Corey.
3 things quick. One is with the battery storage that's now being developed, the intermittent factor with the solar and wind, how so much the factor is getting the solar and wind, and the distributed generation is more reliable. Suppose it's firm power and coal are still not up very long before they run.
Short term though, battery storage is short term solution. It doesn't run 24 hours.
What do you do with the battery when it's done?
And batteries also have degradation and reduce battery capacity, and then there's a lot of environmental hazards creating batteries too. But okay, next question.
But it's getting so it's the new firm power is in there. Second thing, the 28 to 29 megawatts, is that a monthly average or just?
Right now, as of about a little over a week.
How about the monthly average?
Huh?
Daily.
Yeah, it's a daily average. I don't know what the current monthly is right now.
What would we estimate April to average out to?
It's like half the month we started doing the higher capacity, maybe like 20. Maybe we might average around 20 for the month, something like that. Maybe.
Because we were at reduced output before the new.
Would be good when you give us the numbers to say whether it's a monthly or
Oh, okay.
daily.
Okay, right now is daily, current.
And the last thing, after 100 people, about 100 people got sick after hurricane, they all, storm, they all wanted to, problem with the valve, couldn't get out. What kind of changes have been made to your procedures and emergency plans?
Well, emergency plans remain what we have, but then the program for the valve.
So the valves on that specific one, we also changed to stainless steel as the potential for corrosion was an issue on that one. So we changed it to stainless steel on the discharge of that motor on that relief.
So we upgraded the equipment.
But you don't want to,
That cause you problems?
Potentially, there was particulates from rust and whatnot that prevented the valve from functioning correctly, so we went to stainless steel to
And you
prevent
haven't
that.
changed anything in your emergency plan, even though we're hearing from all that people didn't get notification from agencies for 3 days?
So for that notification process is not on us. But there wasn't any cell phone. There was no electricity, there was no power, no cell phone. How do you get notified? There was nothing in a matter of hours, right?
So let me explain too, because if there's an emergency, our guys are going to be responding to the emergency. There's one person that's communicating with all agencies. So for us to stop everything and call everybody or email everyone, that doesn't make sense because we want to respond and mitigate and take care of whatever the situation is. But the key person communicating that to agency personnel gives them the key information where agency personnel can determine whether they go on the radio or on TV or what have you.
That didn't work?
that takes a long time.
Well, so there was no power and whatnot. Now to also clarify, that night it was a few minutes of release. It wasn't like hours or a long time. It was a few minutes of release. In fact, I was on site that night working with trying to wrap up the plant. There was also a truckload of firemen in between us and Leilani that got stuck inside of their vehicle overnight, the whole time. So they were there during the release, all the way till the next morning. We helped to go in there and help open up the road and open up the streets to Leilani so people could get access. And they had no issues. So 6 people that were, or however many they had inside of that vehicle, that were in between our plant and Leilani, there were no issues. Okay, so I saw.
Different people,
did
no,
you have
different people
something?
experience different, yeah,
So go ahead, sir.
okay.
So, we were talking about firm power, baseload power, and the need for that, and somebody had mentioned, we'll just put solar panels there. And we're talking about the weather and the variability of that, et cetera. So, even on a clear day, the capacity factor for solar is maybe 25%. So if you want to have an effective, let's say if you want to have an effective 25 megawatts of output from solar, you're going to need a minimum of 100 megawatts of solar panel farm. Then what do you do about batteries? Battery metals, right now I'm working with a colleague who's a professor and doing research at the Geological Survey of Finland. He's done a global study where essentially there is not enough mineable metals to make one cycle of battery backup for the entire planet. Everyone, the entire planet is competing for these resources. The prices are going to be going up year over year. Solar panels, if you're lucky, they'll last 20 years. What do you do when they don't work anymore? What do you do in 10 years or 12 years when the batteries don't work anymore?
We're surrounded by water.
Supercapacitors are working.
They're not scaled. They're not scaled.
But on small. So,
But
Okay, I mean,
my point is that what was mentioned was using less electricity. You're talking about a massive cultural change.
yeah.
Yes, we are.
Yes,
The
we
young
are.
people say we are.
We are, so we're talking about.
Nobody's doing it, though, unfortunately.
But that means that the culture needs to sort of move like a rugby scrum. It has to move together.
And not reproduce anymore.
And
Because the more people, the more power. Even if you're using small amounts, it all adds up, right? I mean,
one of the things about solar and batteries and wind and all this stuff is it requires 100% of its mining comes from fossil fuels. So there is no renewable power without fossil fuels. You need it for the mining equipment, for the processing, you need it for the power that is 80% of the electricity generated on the planet. You need it to put on giant ships that move the global economy from one end of the earth to the other. So, do we want electricity? I do. Okay. Do you use electricity?
Not really.
Okay, good for you. Okay, so
okay.
do you expect
Thank you,
everybody?
sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the statement. Appreciate that. Go
I
ahead.
got a question for the lady from the county, okay? You talked about the roads.
There we go.
So excited.
Yeah, so excited, so excited. Okay, so,
Come on.
right, we got $63 million for the county, right, for the road. Yes, you guys have had it for 4 years, right? So you tied it up with the feds, with FEMA, and you closed it all together, right? So that all those road projects all had to go together. We could have opened Powiki Road the same time they put in the road, and these guys would have done it for free, right? They said they would put in the road for free for nothing, rough road, right? Citizens, Joe Horvath, for example, said he would put the road in 100%, all by himself. He'd pay for it, right? 2-track dirt road, enough to get us to the beach. Okay, why, you're saying, oh, you're so excited, but why hasn't it happened? $63 million, 106C says FEMA wants their money back. So now you guys are moving on the roads, because you have to pay the $63 million back or use it, and you guys muddied the water. These guys couldn't give us a road because of what the county and the state did. Okay, also, what about Pahoa Lighthouse Road? How come we're denied access? It's 700 feet of lava that you can drive over. It's a public road, and it's blocked. And it's been blocked in its entirety the whole time.
That is the portion, we are restoring that portion that,
When? 4 years ago?
incorrect.
4 years ago, we could drive right out there.
Better answer.
So that 60 plus million, the money that comes from FEMA, it comes with stipulations about how we can spend it. We can't just go out and spend it immediately. We have to do it in the proper way, or else we have to pay it back ourselves. So we are making sure that we are jumping through all the hoops that come with this money. That includes an environmental assessment, which unfortunately has taken quite a bit longer than we expected. We also had the delays because the roadway was too hot. We couldn't get equipment out there in certain portions. There were places along Kawiki Road that until very recently were too hot to get road conditions out there. I know you disagree with me, and that's fine. But the point is that right now we're positioned to do the roads. Right now we're positioned to finish up the EA and spend that money and get the roads out there and break ground by Q1 of next year. And
Great, but the only thing that motivated you guys is because they're coming back for the money, right? The interest from that money should buy every kid in Puna a pair of Nikes and a laptop. You know, it's bullshit.
Well, our focus is to restore the roads that were taken by the eruption. That's what we're doing right now.
Right, so, but what about all the dumping that's going down there? Like, it's like the county or somebody is dumping. There's giant red rocks which did not come out of the lava flow. Ever since the road got restored, there's bigger rocks.
It's soil conservation, and it's Pahoa Land and Development that's doing it. And
The big
it's a
red
private-
rocks
yes,
and all
it's
that.
It's soil conservation
Just let them
district.
dump that.
Yeah, so it's a soil conservation district, right? So it's illegal for them to do it.
It's
And
the road crew, it's the state.
it's not, yeah, it's not, no, it's not. It's private. It's Pahoa Land and Development Company, and they're having Sanford Cinder do it because they own Sanford Cinder Pit. So Sanford's isn't responsible for it. It's Pahoa Land and Development Company. So it's a private company that's blocked the state road.
Yeah,
Where is
Right?
this? I'm not familiar with this. Where
One
exactly
corner.
is it being blocked? Where
Right
is
at
it
one
being?
corner.
Oh, so you're talking about
Right where the road's blocked.
Yeah, why can't we access the beach, right?
So
We got Waikiki down there now.
The
right?
problem with, so
Everybody
where
can
he's
use the
talking
beach.
about is the old Pahoa Road at Four Corners, you go straight. The
Yeah,
problem
yeah.
with that is that the lava did cover it and it hasn't been bulldozed by anybody, but there's access, but that corner is on private property.
Absolutely.
That's why it's-
So it's a paper
it's a-
road, it's a paper road, it's county road on state land that's been historically open since the 50s.
Yeah,
So the
that
only
section,
reason-
but I think the one part, because we know the owner, right? He's our lease
Right,
owner.
he owns you guys, right?
Well, not owns us, but we lease from him, right?
Yeah.
And so in his defense is, you know,
Right.
that there's a lot of trespassing that's going on his property, so I know he's trying to protect that area. Now, it
Okay,
depends on what
so-
county's jurisdiction
I
on
was
where
kind of
the
asking about
access
that
is.
before, about the royalties, right? So that same person who gets the royalties, how much royalties does he get from you guys a month, roughly?
Rent, please.
Yeah,
Royalties,
he gets
mineral
royalties.
rights, how
Yeah.
much a month?
I can't disclose.
Yeah.
But I would love to be him. I would love to be in a family.
So he really needs to protect that corner, right?
So his interpretation is that, I mean, from what, I'm not speaking for him, but what I understand is there's been a lot of trespassing down there, and so, you know, you have
Fishermen going
liability.
down to fish.
No, I agree, I'm a fisherman too, believe me, but unless the county bulldozes the old access, right, that was always
No,
there.
unless they clear out the stuff they
Yeah.
blocked.
Yeah,
All they have to do is
dumping.
clean up the block, they put up a barricade, people take it
Oh, the
down.
barricade is not him though,
Yeah.
that the cement pillars,
No, the
No,
stones,
that's
the
why
rocks,
he's-
the rocks, that is him.
rocks, yeah, I mean, rocks is
Well,
protected area. I don't know where exactly that road
Okay, so my
is.
other question is,
I'm gonna start talking.
my other question is, how much money do you put into our local economy, you guys?
Oh, incredible amounts. So during the project, since 2018, since we've been back online, I mean, we've had over 20-something rentals through majority of the time. I mean, and everybody here has been buying food locally, has been, especially in Pahoa. I mean, and all of course, the rentals are all in this area, from HPP to here. Using the hotels, of course, as necessary. We had, during COVID, local caterers that we were spending money with them to cater all the food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the guys who are working on the drill. We put into a lot of the schools here. Our councilwoman has done many things that we try to help out when we can. We sponsor some of the events that they do that's really good for the community. Anywhere from the dog sanctuary to schools, even in Hilo. Even though they're not in our jurisdiction, you know, canoe club. If they're doing something positive, we want to try to support that, you know, and they reach out to us. And I mean, we have spent...
During the eruption, you guys kept your people busy?
So during the eruption, since we couldn't be at the plant, we actually volunteered at FEMA. I had guys at Red Cross. We had 24/7 security that we provided for the hub because people were trying to steal from the free donation place.
Right.
Which was crazy. So we had 24-hour security that we provided, which was my operators, mechanics, well field techs, electricians that were all standing guard to help protect that. We also had any type of help. We've helped move some stuff for people. And that was during that
annually,
time.
and you did all that work for free, but annually what? More than $50 million in the Puna's economy?
So we put in a lot of millions throughout the last 4 or 5 years.
So this is what we can share. I mean, with the employees and the payroll and the taxes, it's like $4 million a year. Just the employees and taxes and benefits that.
But that's not the community stuff that we're putting in.
So how about the mineral rights and all that stuff that you guys were paying out for your lease?
Down there, throughout the 30 years, we paid about $20 million.
Larry wants to talk, yeah.
Yeah, I was promised,
Oh, go ahead, Larry.
a slot at some point.
Got your slot.
This is a smoking gun. I was really happy to hear people talking about the water getting injected during the eruption. This little rectangle has 37 earthquakes in it, and you can see that it is maybe 200 yards south of the production wells, which were the ones that got quenched. The earthquakes.
Stand over here.
Turn around there so the camera.
Okay, so this is a little blue rectangle in the middle of the PGV facility. It's 6 acres. 6 acres. That's maybe 2 lots in Hawaiian acres, 6 Leilani lots, 37 earthquakes. And like hell you didn't feel them. There were 9 of these that were over magnitude 2.5. If you look, they're the biggest earthquakes in the whole area. This is Fisher 22 erupting, Fisher 19 erupting, Fisher 13 erupting. What else would you expect when you put millions of gallons into, it's between the lava, it hit the lava right here and blew up and opened up the entire line of fissures beyond Fisher 13. It opened up 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 22 during the time that you were pumping water. Coincidence, it's right on the edge. And this whole section from here to here was erupting lava the entire way, half a mile on May 19th and May 20th.
Talmadge, were you in service during that time? So when we went in the morning, how many, remember when they were showing us the graphs on how much earthquakes we were having, and you guys were telling me we're gonna have lava breakout, and I was like, no ways, but hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of earthquakes were happening.
Is that what you wanted to share?
Prior to that.
That is what I wanted to share, and it's relevant because you still have the same plan.
Okay.
And it will happen again, and you will be responsible for the destruction of something besides Pahoa, which you, besides,
okay.
That 30 is, what did you say, how many, 30?
2.5, 37 earthquakes.
That's a small smidgen of the thousands and thousands and
Right.
Well, they're neighbors, but they weren't magnitude 2, they weren't even magnitude 1.
okay.
This is US
There are many, many,
data.
many earthquakes.
Bullshit. You guys are in denial.
Okay,
That's all I have to say.
first of all, yeah, hold on though, I want to finish off with Larry, right? Thank you for sharing, right? So Larry got the smoking gun and I have the, I don't know what, the quenching gun, okay? USGS talks about all the earthquakes, about the history and the eruptions of the East Rift Zone for over 200 years. How all of this type of activity have been occurring before PGB was here, 55 eruptions, 60 eruptions, and there's going to be more eruptions on the East Rift Zone. I'd be happy to share this with anyone who's interested in seeing and reading some scientific information.
One more time, and you're gonna leave like.
We're gonna put it on our website.
Okay, I got this.
Okay, sorry.
Can we get a response from?
What is that?
This movie right here talks about all the new energy that's coming in the future.
Yeah.
There's not just what we got now. There's energy in the future. This movie, Thrive, I suggest every human being to see it
Thrive?
and get involved. Thrive, Thrive. You'll never regret seeing it. It's about all the new energy that's coming out, and it's an awesome movie. Get it and see it. Locally, all the energy that's out there, that's just in the air, the energy field.
We got solar panels that work at night.
Well, no, but it's got other things that are better than that, okay?
Free
Yeah, I like the
See the
sun.
movie,
It's
okay?
free,
See the
yeah.
movie, you'll love it, I guarantee it.
I see the
Right.
movie, I think it's so.
And one is about the corruption within the oil companies and the drug companies. Thrive 2 has all the solutions we have, including cancer, is nothing but acidity. They talk about that. It's just a condition of the cells being so acidic that they can't repair no more. And this movie talks about it too, and the drug companies, how they want all their thing, and the oil companies want their thing, and, the movies talk about it. They go into all the details about energy and what's going on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I suggest everybody see this.
Can you tell more about that?
Hold on. She has her hand up. Go ahead.
Something to see.
Aloha, my name is Shelley. I'm with the Native Tenant Protection Council. I just want to say, first of all, so far as contaminating the water, the land, Native tenants, Kanakamo'o, etc., have a right to that property and every square inch within the Hawaiian archipelagos and the meets and bounds of the Hawaiian Kingdom. I want to bring up, as he was saying about the energy, other alternatives up there. So there's like, what about methane conversion, like sewage treatment plants? That's obviously everyday renewable. It's hard to transport, so it's sort of a special design. I know there's millions available for these sewage treatment plants, so we could do it right. It's never been done. Also, that there, when I was taking marine science, basically, it was announced during the class that there is a gel on top of fish, their face. It's basically for locating their prey, but it actually transmits electricity faster than metal. So they're actually looking into this now. It could revolutionize everything because it speeds up the transportation of the electricity. It can save on usage of electricity just because of a better system. Basically, can kind of wrap it up like this, is that we the people demand a separate public hearing on the emergency response plan. Is there anyone in this room that has ever seen like a newspaper ad or anything? Have you ever put it out for the public to come comment? Because I've heard numerous worst case scenarios and whatnot. So just to, one more comment. So at the last meeting, you actually admitted to 180 pounds per hour for 31 hours. So according to the EPA, it's a criminal infraction at 100 pounds of hydrogen sulfide per hour. So EPA, and I notified our county council, including for the other district up to KL, because it also involves his district, because they're supposed to evacuate Pahoa to 10 square miles. So in your evacuation plan that we've never been allowed to comment on, do you think that that we can actually get all the kids, get all the senior citizens, like right next door, can we get them all out in time?
So,
Like how the EPA said.
so listen, because of comments like yours, in reference to the emergency response plan that PGD has, we put it online.
Okay, but did
Because
we
of
get the
comments?
comment? Where's our
You
comment?
can
Where's our
comment
public
online.
hearing?
You can comment online.
No, we don't, we want a separate meeting. And I know the county is here today. Is it possible for you to arrange like a separate meeting with Department of Health, Public Utilities Commission, and the county to assist the public in numerous accounts of not notifying? I mean, they lied to Hurricane. They didn't even tell it. They said it's all clear. It was like 31 hours. So we would like to trust you. We'd like, you know, but bad track record. So we need a separate meeting.
So,
Not controlled by the geothermal on the issue of
Let me
Title
volunteer.
42, public health and safety.
I'll volunteer something. The perfect opportunity is the environmental impact study that we're going through.
Okay.
We had the scoping meeting, right? Public meeting. So now we're going through the draft stage. Comments are welcome.
But the emergency response
You
plan
can
is in the
respond.
EIS? Is that in
You
there?
can respond to it.
No, but is it in the EIS that you're working on?
It's referenced.
But is it in there for
An
us to
EIS
comment?
is not about an ERP. An EIS looks at everything to include the ERP.
Yes.
You have opportunity to comment, is what I'm saying.
I understand that, but
But
what I'm
that's very
saying is
expansive,
we need, like at
It
this
is, but it
room,
looks at everything.
there could have been a nice display of your emergency response plan, so it's like, okay, and, I mean, I'm from the
How
day
many
when there was
pages?
hardly TV,
Ron,
so to
how many
access
pages is
something.
the ERP?
Yeah.
How fat is that?
So,
200 to 300 pages.
it's a good size, but let me also, listen, when that ERP was first produced, it went through the public comment. The civil defense administrator was Harry Kim.
But
The
you
mayor,
never admitted,
Still
according to the
public knowledge.
EPA.
the mayor was Lorraine Noy.
Yeah,
How many years ago was that?
So we update annually, or as events occur, we update from lessons learned, like the hurricane, right? Like the eruption.
But except the roads are still showing, you showed.
Okay, we'll take the roads out, yeah, so you got us.
so why is it so hard to have a public hearing about the emergency response plan? Because I don't understand why RMAT was at 1%, is gonna come over 1% of their operations and do this to the people
You can
involved.
comment in the EIS
I
about
want
the
to comment
ERP.
on, and I'm not trying to be rude, I want to be efficient
Yep,
here for the public.
yep.
I'm demanding a public hearing, and I don't think you should be so opposed if you're really trying to do the right thing for the people.
I just told you, you can comment on the ERP and the EIS.
I want to comment
All
on
of
the
that is
emergency
considered
response
in
plan
everything
meeting.
moving forward.
It's
So
public
make a
knowledge,
comment
and it's
and tell them they
5,000
won't
pages
hold
plus.
meetings.
That's a big one.
You know, if they won't, they
So
don't
you-
want it.
See, I don't want you
Next
to put in
question.
charge.
Yes, Corey.
County.
Oh, I'm sorry, well,
Can you tell me what the monitoring, you said you have monitors on your site. Can you tell me what you're monitoring, please?
H2S, wind, sound, particulates when we're drilling.
noise.
What
Yes.
about any chemicals?
H2S is the primary.
Yeah, that's the only one you're monitoring?
So actually, when we're drilling, we do have PM10, which is particulate matter. It looks at for aerosols when we're drilling. Particulate matter.
And that just covers a whole range of?
Yeah, it's a whole range of materials that could go into the atmosphere.
Okay, thank you.
So we should find out exactly what that covers, Ron, and we can share with Catherine.
And we
And
can
other-
find
and
that on
Hannah.
the website?
What's that?
Can we find that on the website?
PM10, sure, PM10, you can Google it. Yeah. There's PM is just the size of the filters, right? You have 10 smaller ones, larger ones, depending on what you're trying to monitor.
Because I just imagine, since you have fishes right behind you, then you are also picking up background hydrogen sulfide.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do, yeah, depending on the wind
What's
direction.
in your plant and what's surrounding.
Well, we walk our plant very thoroughly with our employees, our staff, and we monitor the operating conditions, because if there's anything unusual, it could mean that maybe there's something that's leaking, not properly functioning, which could be something related to, you know, the geothermal system. But that's the first line of our guys going around, and 24/7 we're doing that. So like when you call, or you go to the response line, the first thing Jordan or I or Ron would do is call the plant. Say, hey guys, let us know, is anything going on, what's going on? And that's where we start, that's what we start.
Corey, go ahead.
Two things. One is a comment on battery storage. Interesting, like the gentleman behind me said, but you don't just use batteries, you can also pump water uphill during the day, then run down during the day. I've seen stuff with salt, and there's a lot of new technology coming out, because it doesn't necessarily have to be batteries. And other question is, when your emergency plan is updated, how does the public have input into that? And if it's not happening now, how could that happen in the future?
Well, the EIS process is going on right now.
That's going to be, when this is though, you're going to be updating this plan for years into the future.
Oh, yeah.
Every time there's a change, how does the public know about it? And how does the public have input?
Well, if you're
The
interested.
website,
Yeah.
is
You
the
can
most
reach out,
current.
comments, questions to our website.
That means I have to keep going to the website to see if the emergency.
Well, listen, why don't you just email me? You send me your questions.
Yes, but
Tell me when you want to comment on the ERP, next time Ron updates it.
Would be nice to have a public meeting
Well,
about
it's so
it.
wonderful.
is it regularly updated, or is it more like there's a problem and then you update it?
No, it's regularly updated because personnel change. And part of the ERP is different personnel performing different responsibilities. So like if Jordan is not going to be the plant manager with different supervisors and whatnot, that's typically what we update.
But also industry changes, right? If industry changes and we learn from other plants or other facilities, other industry standards change, technology changes, right? We upgrade the same too. So I mean, that's where we can add stuff, make things better, sound mitigation, like that's why in our new plan, what we're looking at is having less fans, less sound, right? I mean, I know from the community, sound was always an issue, so we're looking at all this technology to try to mitigate things and adjust. Let me ask you on the water thing, how big of an area do you need, and how much megawatts can you make on the water system that you talked about? Oh. Okay, I just was wondering, because I mean, it sounded interesting, but I'm not familiar with it. Go ahead, sir, you never asked a question yet.
Yeah, so as far as like battery storage, you guys aren't here really to talk about alternatives to what you guys are doing. You know, you're 24 hours clearly, but a lot of people seem to be really interested. There's an issue where you have to feed more power in than you get. A lot of these solutions using like hydrogen and water pumping and gravity have that issue. But you are correct that there are other alternatives to lithium. There's like the saltwater batteries, Aqueon. I've seen a handful of those on sites here. They do have a 90% return on what you feed them. Nickel metal hydride, and then we use like 4 different chemistries of lithium. So we're working like tirelessly whenever we get like used cells from California by the pallet to sort them, sorting the panels, testing them. It's really labor intensive when you're dealing with end of life stuff. Like that second decade of running lithium, a lot of these companies just don't do it. They only run it the first decade. And you guys, and anybody attached to Helco, your hands are tied. You have to get materials that have gone through the lengthy testing process, high quality manufactured. It ends up being very expensive. So I understand, like your options are kind of limited with experimentation, but if you are, if instead of Helco, if you're on Heaven Co, so to speak, you do have a lot more options, but a lot more risk. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. And do you follow, you know that the state has a mandate to get to 100% renewable by 2045? You aware of that?
I'm not.
So Hawaii has a mandate. Renewable energy, 100% 2045, right? So just as an FYI, before the eruption, PGV was 31% of all the energy on this island. Okay.
Wow.
So now, all the technologies that you're referencing and mentioning, if you go to the Hawaiian Electric website, they're going through this numerous request for proposal process. And if you have a project that you think would be worth considering with the utility, their mandate is to get to 100% renewable by 2045.
submitted to be interested. It's
Take
just,
a look at that.
yeah, it's just not UL listed.
Methane.
The stuff that we're using is like coming used by the pallet in the container, like, you know, used panels that I'm having to sort, and there's lots of bad panels and bad cells in there,
Right.
like, Helco wouldn't touch it. I can tell you that.
Lithium's a problem.
Recycling is not in their, you know, it's all new equipment, all UL listed, like recycling's not an option basically.
Thank you for that. Go ahead.
Do you have a full-time webmaster? Who is your webmaster?
We have a company that handles it 24/7 as needed.
Yeah.
Joseph? Yes, yes.
Dana also helps us.
Tell your friends.
But our.
So Hastings and Pivo is one,
And
and then
RIP.
and then RIP.
Have you looked at our website? Yeah, if you have any ideas on how it could be helpful, just let us know, let Jeremy know, let me know.
When are you gonna take the roads off, the emergency response plan?
We're gonna kick that off so that you can clap for
So
us
you
at the
can
next
see where we
meeting.
can, how we can the state, because right now you
But
can
hopefully
say
it's
like
soon
we
to
can
be
escape.
Maybe we don't have to take the road
Our
off yet.
plan is to break ground in Q1 of next year, and it should take about 2 years.
So,
I know
we're
it's
gonna wait for the
whack.
county.
For all 4 projects.
I'm telling you, if the lava would have, yeah.
For all 4 projects.
So you have some money to break ground?
Sorry, next question, raise your hand, go ahead, sir.
Okay, so you're talking about 100% off. Why are we doing anything about that now with Taco? And I know that that's not
We're
you guys,
trying.
but they are, 100%, right here in this room, right? Everybody's concerned, right?
So we're doing an
19
EIS.
1953 are generators from
Yeah,
down
that's
there,
crazy.
yeah, right?
So that's why we're talking, we're gonna repower a project, some people refer it to as an expansion. We consider it a repower because we're gonna decommission the old stuff we have, put in new equipment that is much more efficient. It's gonna result in an increase of 8 megawatts using the same geothermal fluids for the 38 megawatts today.
But you
So-
can't even make 38 megawatts, so what are you talking
So
about?
we're almost there, we're almost there.
If you go over 38 megawatts,
Yes,
does it change your permit?
no. So with the Department of Health, they actually state a 41 megawatt nominal power plant. With Helco, the contract is 38, so at a minimum, we need to be able to deliver 38, but it's at their discretion. If we have more available, they could take it. And before the eruption,
The max, I think we did like 41.
41 or 42.
Now, that pricing is the cheapest on the island.
For like a
So
minute.
anything on that amount, they
Yeah.
usually want because it's the cheapest on the island. I mean, the
6
contract
cents a
is,
kilowatt hour.
and how much you pay
You have a generator.
as a consumer, right?
25 has been what you've generated since 1995, with the exception of 1 year.
Okay. Yeah, we go up and down.
Yeah, well, it never
Mostly
goes much
down,
above
doesn't go
25.
up much.
Well, we just went through
Which
a
is-
lovely thing. Give us a break, like we're trying to recover from it and trying to.
Well, we're trying to fix the roads by the
We
next.
were
not
at
easy time.
25 in May 2 years ago. You haven't gone up in 2 years.
We're up right now.
No, he's right.
We're up right now.
Sorry.
For a brief moment, the monthly average is still 20.
She raised her hand, let her talk.
Yeah, so Corey's question was how often,
How does the public know what got changed in the 500 pages or so?
so Corey's asking, how often do we update the emergency response plan and how is the public notified? If we haven't been doing it, what happens is Ron usually is the one that updates it, and then he has a date on the cover sheets, updated with the date. And what we'll do is we can say which areas were updated. And typically, it's the personnel, like I said.
Is it tested?
Excuse me?
Typically, plans like that are tested.
Oh, yeah, we've been using it for 30 years. We just used it in 2018 for the eruption.
And that's why
Very much tested.
we would look at updating, you know, we update, it can be multiple times a year, it can be once a year, it's depending on what the need is, right? And if there's industry standards that are better, then we'll try to adapt that, and we'll try to put that in and learn from other people's lessons or whatnot, or as
We'll include
technology
you, Corey, on the
changes.
next one.
Yep.
Yep.
Like if you want to know what is updated and find the update.
We'll let you know.
You need to go to the website.
So I need to,
Just tell me now, you want to be involved, and then when Ron does it, I'll try to remember. I'll put it down in my Outlook calendar.
you know, you ought to really think about what you are doing. Because what you are doing to the earth and the life is wrong and very painful.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Paul.
Jennifer,
Oh,
can you
Jennifer.
say what's the target date to finish Pahoa Road, just Pahoa Road?
Just the Pahoa Road, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's on our website right now. I can give you that information and give you my card and you can email me and I will get it to you
That'd be great.
as soon as I get home.
That'd be great.
I would love to do that.
We got time for one last question.
Please, please do.
Thanks, Jen.
How about the Lighthouse Road?
Just saying, I love it. Can I give you my card again? I think you already have it, but.
See, I like that too, because I want to go to the, sorry.
I'd like to say something after the last question.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, basically, I was reading, that after the last meeting, January meeting 2023, that Helco,
He's
in
not
March,
helpful.
is that Helco? Is Helco in the
No,
room?
he's not helpful. Helpful's not here. He's CD. She's giving you the helpful look.
Okay. So basically, that Helco made a mistake to give the permit to the Puna Geothermal in March 2023, because that was just after the January meeting, and there was a lot of unfinished, unanswered questions and things going on there. So, yeah, I just want to make that point that I don't agree that they gave the permit because, like they're saying, there's no drill on the ERP, there's, you know, criminal infractions involved and stuff. But one of the main things that bothers me is the hourly average. I like the instant reading, but hourly average, because according to Department of Health ring maps, when they're drilling, I know too, because a friend of mine worked at the geothermal plant. So he was there at the blowout, and basically they got knocked down. They couldn't even go get masks, all kind of stuff was going on. They weren't, you know, it's like the 1991 blowout. And because they didn't want to admit to the blowout, then he suffered by not getting correct medical, all kind of stuff happened with him because of the non-admittal to these worst case scenarios. So how can we possibly have an emergency response plan without all the worst case scenarios and also dealing with hourly average? Because that 1,300 parts per million is lethal in 1 to 2 breaths. So I don't understand what hourly average is like, this doesn't make any sense.
Okay, appreciate it. So I do have one quick suggestion. So Sarah says she's going to be monitoring the modification of the Department of Health clean air permit, air pollution permit. Please let her know, because that'll be the time for her to chime in. That's the agency that oversees the compliance with the hourly averages and such.
So one real quick thing too, the sewage, you're talking about methane, right, as alternative energy.
Pahoa in particular.
Sewage also has SO2.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, sorry, not SO2, H2S, right?
Yes.
So H2S is naturally also, and that's another
Gotta have
H2S
the
source.
proper, what do you call them? Chimneys and
Scrubbers or
stuff.
stacks,
Gotta
right?
have all the proper
So I mean,
Okay.
it's a similar situation.
Right, Ashley?
Ashley, go ahead. She'll do our closing. I mean, but you.
Thanks, you guys. My name is Ashley Kirkowitz. If you haven't met me before, I'm the council member for District 4. That encompasses Hawaiian Paradise Park, all the way down into Kalapana. Yeah, it's thank you, Mike, Jordan, and team for hosting these regular meetings. I think I have a lot of respect for you guys holding a lot of space. And this is a very sensitive issue, a lot of tension in the room, but I appreciate your willingness to share as much information as you can and to troubleshoot and to find solutions. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge and appreciate that. And also, since day one at the Hub, you guys have been incredible community partners supporting various projects, food distributions, programs during COVID, stuff for the kids. So I also want to acknowledge that not every company does that. So thank you for going out of your way to be a good neighbor. You mentioned earlier having meetings with county mayor, planning department, and Department of Health and the recovery team. I would love to be included in those meetings if I'm not overstepping, just because as a representative of the district, this is probably one of the top 3 calls that I get every week is regarding your operation. So to be able to be in the room where information is shared, I think would be really beneficial. That way I can be sure to
I want to go to that meeting.
communicate information to constituents.
We'll never get through it.
We'll
You keep interrupting.
You keep talking about the road.
Sorry, I just have a few more points to make. There was a lot of really great interest, and I recently was invited by Pahoa Electric to visit their facility in the industrial area behind Enterprise. And it is a real, like, I like to call it magic, but there's a real science behind how we balance all of the different intermittent renewable energy sources from solar, wind, and hydro onto the grid, and make sure that at any moment someone can flip the switch and have lights. There have been times where they've been very, very close, which is why they issued those conservation warnings, where they were going to shut the power down because they just couldn't cultivate enough to power all of the homes and businesses around the island. I think it's important, if possible, to have Hawaiian Electric here to just give community an overview of what it takes to operate the grid. I know they're working really hard to integrate more renewable energy, but we have to have the independent power producers that have viable, feasible projects to be able to deliver energy at a price point that folks can afford. So if they can be a regular presence here and be just around to answer questions folks might have about energy in general, I think that would be really productive.
So we do, real quick to that, we do invite them. I think they probably had some things this evening, but we'll mention.
But this kind of presentation.
Yeah, we'll mention that if they can actually explain so everybody, because even I at first I was like, how come everybody cannot have solar on their house, right? But when I took the explanation, when I was down there on the grid, I'm like, oh wow, it's a way bigger picture than I thought. I mean, and to balance the grid is not an easy feat.
No, it's 24/7, it's 365, and I know Jen and Kevin have been here in the past, but a presentation on that would be great. I worked with Talmadge. Last year, was it Talmadge? We worked to update Chapter 7, which is Civil Defense section of code. I am a woman who loves plans and plans of action and having every single partner at the table knowing what their responsibilities are. And so one of the things that we noticed in Chapter 7 was we didn't codify incredibly important plans that we need to have continuity of operations and to ensure that there are pathways established for county to be collaborating with community in times of emergency. I bring this up because there's a lot of discussion around an emergency response plan. What if something goes wrong at PGV? What do we do? What if there's a natural disaster that impacts your operations? What do we do? So I think it would be incredibly beneficial for us to put our heads together around some kind of community presentation about these plans, to run through some scenarios, and maybe even do some exercises. Like, I think at the end of the day, no one's trying to hide information. Let's get the information out there so that people are empowered and they can make the right decisions for their households.
I think this was what you were talking about before too, right? On incorporating.
Yes. I like planning and preparation. It just helps me in times of stress and chaos. Anyway, I'd love to be able to talk story a little bit more, Talmadge, with you about how we might be able to work with PGV to facilitate that. And just a suggestion at your quarterly meetings, if there are updates that you're making to your emergency response plan, maybe just talk about them at the meeting. That way folks don't have to second guess what those might be. Just a suggestion. Thanks for being open to that. I don't know how many folks subscribe to the local paper. It may be a cost that some folks aren't able to afford on a monthly basis. Sarah mentioned you can only read a few articles before they put the paywall up. I think there are other ways to get information out to community outside of the newspaper. I don't think you guys have a social media presence. You probably don't want one because people will be trolling you all day long. But there are ways in which you can do paid advertisements through Facebook and Instagram. I suggest you guys explore that for future community meetings. There are also text options. I know that H&P does post, but if you don't want to post it on your page, they can take ads out.
We've been doing social media for at least the last year.
Okay. I didn't get one in my feed for this meeting.
Okay.
Okay, but you know what? Mercury's also in retrograde, so I am taking that into consideration. I'm a little bit cosmic.
But we did also, if anybody wants to be on it, we got the list too, so that
And
can-
Jordan,
we can-
that is
we can send them
fantastic.
through
You
the
guys
slide.
are going out of your way to make sure people get information, so thank you, thank you. I also just want to bring up that I've been working with Paul Kuykendall and Auntie Anna Marie Cohn. We wanted to revisit the USGS report that Mike referenced earlier. We are engaging USGS to do another second report, but I also know that there might be hesitation in community about the authenticity of that data and the credibility of that report. And so I'm working with Paul and Auntie Anna Marie Cohn and a third party to do a study in parallel, just so that at the end of the day, we can be sure. We can come to a conclusion about public health and safety regarding operations of geothermal in
What
our
about
community.
seismic monitoring when they won't let us?
So
know
I'm
what's happening?
taking a look at the Adler report because there are a lot of recommendations that came out of this group that was started under the Kenoi administration, I believe ignored by Harry Kim. I don't know where Mayor Roth stands on this, but it's my district, and there are geothermal royalty funds that the county receives on an annual basis that are meant to support community. And so we can take a look at prioritizing getting these actions done, and if there's a cost associated, we can use the royalty funds to pay for it. So I just want folks to know that this is on my radar, and there's a lot to get through, and it's not gonna happen overnight, but if possible, at the quarterly meetings, Mike, I'd love to just be able to talk about where, I love that you just said bullshit, Sarah. Say it out loud so we can all hear.
Yeah. 'Cause you're calling them.
No, seriously, let's have a little respect. I'm here because I care.
I was talking about her phone
Okay,
going off.
thank you.
That's,
I thought you said bullshit.
No, I
I'm
did
here
not.
because I care. And I want to make sure that we're implementing this report. There are great recommendations here. Anyway, I'd love to be able to, at quarterly meetings, just kind of talk about the progress that's being made to facilitate implementation.
Be happy to do
Thanks for
that.
all the time.
Thank you,
Share.
thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you very much, Ashley. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a safe travel home.
Thanks, Shelley.
July 25.